Hello, I'm SeafoodSource Editor Sean Murphy, and welcome to another edition of SeafoodSource TV, the bi-weekly video blog where we bring you news, information, and insights into the world of the seafood industry. Around this time last year, the National Restaurant Association issued its What's Hot in 2013 list, an annual prediction of coming seafood trends on America's menus. Among the association's predictions was a leaning toward what it called non-traditional species. With scarcity due to shortages or other problems, some restaurateurs could be tempted to offer fish that most people have barely heard of in place of more common species like salmon. A spokesman for the association told us this week that the 2014 report isn't out yet, but the association predicts that trend will continue into next year. Well, one chef and restaurateur who likes giving his diners a taste of something unusual is Rick Moonen, whom you may recognize from television's Top Chef Masters. He's the owner of RM Seafood and RX Boiler Room in Las Vegas. A longtime advocate of responsible fishing and fish farming, Chef Moonen is not shy about promoting alternative species to restaurant owners and their customers. Today, he joins us via Skype to tell us a little bit about just what else is out there. Chef, thanks for joining us today on SeafoodSource TV.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Good to be here.
Now, you made it pretty clear in the past that you've been trying to encourage chef owners like yourself to be a little more conscious of where they're sourcing their seafood from, particularly their salmon. There are salmon farmers and then there are salmon farmers, and sometimes some chefs may want to just stick with the wild stuff and not necessarily turn to the farm stuff, and I know you're a lot like that yourself in your restaurant. But one of the problems would be that sometimes it's hard to get salmon under those circumstances. So you've come up with a couple of unusual alternatives for alternative species to offer to your customers. What have you been coming up with?
Well, I mean, salmon being the #1 selling fin fish globally, such a huge business. So it's a great topic to open up this discussion because there's so many moving parts to the word sustainability, between environmental impact and feed and all these crazy things. But salmon, when I can't get wild salmon fresh, right? Or if it's a bad year, the run in the specific areas is in return, and you can't source it and have it on your menu because you must have salmon. If you're a seafood restaurant or if you're a balanced menu, usually, because that's what people eat. What do you go to? Well, farmed Atlantic salmon, generally speaking, historically has been a bad choice for many, many reasons. That aside, where do we go? Because actually, that's another discussion because they're starting to make moves and becoming better.
Right.
That's going to be another day. We can talk that one. But as far as alternative species, I like to go with Arctic char. It's a fish that's available wild certain times of the year. It's a beautiful fish. If you're a fly fisherman, let me tell you something. You hook one of those on a fly reel, you're in heaven. They're gorgeous fish and they're delicious. But they're farm raised as well. Now, this type of aquaculture does not have a negative environmental impact because they're enclosed. They're recirculating systems. This is because the species can be grown in fresh water and or salt water. So they could just recirculate their water, come out with a beautiful product. I call it salmon light. It's more closely related to a trout. But nonetheless, it's bait and switch, delicious, same recipes. The learning curve on it is zero. You cook it the same way you cook salmon, except the skin's more tender and you don't have to deal with scales. I don't see much wrong with that. It's beautiful size. They're a little smaller than big salmon. You're not going to get big girthy fillets, but flavor and texture and omega-3s. The story, call it salmon light, keep it easy. People can relate to it. Customers try it. I've had tremendous success with it. And when I want to get a bigger, fatter fish and I can't get the wild salmon, I'll get a steelhead trout, which is, again, or a steelhead salmon. They're the big guys. They're much more equivalent in prep style and whatever application you want to do food-wise to a salmon in the size. And keep your eye on the ball because, there's certain species, there's certain aquaculture giants and or smaller companies that are doing things differently. They're starting to hear the environmental concerns, and I think we're hitting a tipping point where the big guys are not far behind, so that's really interesting as well.
Okay. Well, let's say you're a chef and you want to go for some of these alternative species. You're looking for Arctic char, you're looking for cobia or something, or steelhead or anything like that. How hard is it to get these? I mean, do you really have to jump through a lot of hoops to get them, or is it something that's fairly readily available?
Well, some things are harder to get. Some things are much more readily available, such as Arctic char. Arctic char, I used to see it arriving all the time when I was at the Fulton Fish Market in New York City. Big market. Not everybody has access to that. Seattle, you can get Arctic char up there for sure. You probably can get some wild Arctic char up there from anglers. They're coming right down. That's where they are, But the rest of the world, Arctic char in the industry, much more readily available. It's a great, great, great alternative, and it's just going to get, heck, they're doing well. So they're spreading out. Okay. So as far as steelhead salmon or steelhead trout, you just have to ask your purveyor. They're going to look for it. The only reason they don't stock it all the time is because it's a fresh fish and it's perishable. You tell them. You have to communicate with them. My message to chefs is talk to your purveyors. Have a relationship with them. Tell them what you want, what you're looking for. They'll find it.
Okay. And when they find these fish, you said Arctic char, there's not a very steep learning curve. How about some of the others there? You mentioned steelhead trout. You mentioned, I think you mentioned cobia. I mean, how hard is it to cook these, and how hard is it to present them? I mean, can you use the same vegetables, the same size as you use with a regular salmon, or is it different?
No, I think you can. And if you're having a stumbling block, all you'd have to do is like fold in some caviar into a butter sauce, or throw some crab meat on it. Things that people are automatically going to be drawn to. Ooh, caviar, but crab, shrimp, lobster. You can integrate that into just about anything from a cold preparation to and/or hotter sauce. Anything you would do with salmon, you can do and enhance it. That'll sell it. You mentioned cobia. Cobia is not really in the salmon family, but there's a whole other fish. What the reason is because it's its own genus and species. It has no relatives, and they're solitary swimmers. So you never see them on the market on a regular basis because they don't. There's not enough of them in one given area to make it worth someone's while to go out and turn it into a business. So it's not a fishery. But they come up as bycatch when they're going after other fish. They make it to the market. I get to see it. I buy it. I use it. It's amazing. Blows your mind. The texture of it, the capability of cooking it just about any way, from raw to seared to grilled to put in a pan to roasted to broiled, anything. This fish just handles it. It's like a firmer flesh, like swordfish, yet it has fatty oiliness of like a hamachi, beautiful yellowfin or beautiful fatty fish. So to me, it's like the veal of the ocean, but you can't get it. Now it's being farm raised. Now I have my eye out. I'm like, oh yeah, I can put it on my menu. I can have this all the time. So cobia, which no one's heard of, why? Because it's never been out there, unless you're a local, having someone in your family catch it. Now we have to build. We, meaning media, have to support. It has to go out there. It has to have a story and a message. Is it easy? No. You ask people to try it, and you just explain it the way I did. It's a fatty fish. It's got a firm texture like a swordfish. Sort of a swordfish and your Chilean sea bass marry each other. You have to have fun with it. You have to bring the customer in. You can't just put it on your menu and expect it to sell itself. But that's what I do, and that's what I enjoy.
Okay. Well, the association mentioned that these kinds of alternative species were going to be pretty common or becoming more common as the year went on. And I know it's kind of hard to measure that per se. And I know that in your restaurants, you've been doing it all the time, whether they're supposed to be trendy or not per se. But what's been your experience in interacting with some of the other restaurateurs, maybe some of the guys back home in New York for you guys? Any indication that some of these unusual species are beginning to gain traction with customers?
No, I haven't really had deep discussions with a lot of those guys, but I see more and more of them popping up on menus. And just without even having that discussion, why would it be on someone's menu if they weren't having some sort of return on it? And return is monetary, and return is appreciative, and return is variety, which is what we need more of. We're just too locked into the few species that we think are cool to eat as a populace, as a globe. It's salmon, tuna, you want your Chilean sea bass. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 fish, and it's like, nothing else. We have to start eating lower on the food chain. We have to start celebrating people that are farming it better, and supporting them, just celebrating and not running in the streets screaming yay. But I mean, it's about creating some sort of balance, because right now, we haven't treated our globe well enough, allowing it to recoup, like destroying its environment and overfishing with our technology, and wonder why we're running into a crisis with certain species. It's because we haven't allowed the ecosystem to really work how it's supposed to work, because we interfere.
Okay. Well, the next step would be maybe talking about getting it on. Once it's onto the menu, what do you do next? What happens when you have a customer who comes in, looks at the menu and says, Char, what is that? I mean, you know, as you said, people have a comfort zone, and some people may not necessarily be comfortable with these kinds of species. What advice would you give to restaurateurs as to what they should be doing about that?
Communicate a message with your staff. Get them proud of the fact that you're serving a species specifically because it's better for our planet and our future. Get them on board. Get them to get into the culture of what you're trying, the message you're trying to give them, and let them have fun with the customer. The customer says, "What's char? Do you like salmon? Do you like salmon?" That's all. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 words, right? Yeah. And if they turn yes, then you will love that. It's a little bit lighter in texture, but it has everything that salmon delivers, and it's made with, and then you just roll right into it. That's it. Don't make a big deal out of it. No one wants to be preached to. But do you like salmon? Yeah, I like salmon. Then you'll love that. Holy smokes! Okay, communicate. You have to close a gap. You might have to be a little bit creative. But if you're excited about it as a restaurateur and a chef, and you can talk to your staff to get them on board and understand, hey, we're not serving Chilean sea bass, but we're serving sable fish or black cod. Very similar in texture, the same way that we were serving our Chilean sea bass, marinated in the sweet miso, blah, blah, blah. Just roll right through it. It's the same fish. And you know what? It's not bait and switch, but I mean, pun intended. Yeah. It's about expanding people's acceptance of diversity that's in the ocean already, and that we're a big part of that. That's the awesome.
Sometimes it's that simple. Chef Moonen, thanks so much for your time today.
Pleasure.
Chef Rick Moonen is the chef owner of RM Seafood and RX Boiler Room, both in Las Vegas, talking with us today about non-traditional species and the role they have or may soon have on your favorite restaurant's menu. That's it for this week, but check back in 2 weeks for another edition of Seafood Source TV, where we bring you more news, information, and insights into the world of the seafood industry. Till then, I'm Seafood Source Editor Sean Murphy saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you online.